Dustin, why won't you walk away from EOS? Despite good revenue, the management has proven not trustworthy. Isn't that a red flag?
It's a good
That's
question.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, what happened was EOS completely missed their guidance for the last earnings or expectations for the last earnings. And the
Was it
market
their own
felt
guidance or was it Wall Street's expectations?
it
Because
was
there is
their
a
own.
difference.
It was
It
their
was their
own
own
guidance.
guidance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they reiterated like a month before, 2 months before that they felt they were still on track.
Gotcha.
Basically. So then the market felt like
April than Elon.
they were decepting or deceptive. And there was some potential like malpractice in regards to investor relations. My take on it, being a newer investor in EOS, so I haven't been following them as closely necessarily, but I felt like they were maybe just over optimistic. And they need to learn to under promise and over deliver. And I talked about this on the podcast when it happened several weeks ago. The other piece of like, why am I not walking away is it's a very small position in my portfolio. It's, I think, under 2%. Yeah, it's under 1.5% of my portfolio. And the price has really was really beaten down after earnings. And typically that's just a buying opportunity. I haven't bought too much since the earnings. I'm watching them right now. If the price goes down significantly more, I'll buy more. But everything from my perspective, is intact outside of the price. Like the revenue was good, it just didn't hit guidance. The product is good. I think they're executing well in regards to they're building a new factory. They're overhauling the mechanics of how they build these batteries. So there's a lot of positive momentum outside of them missing the guidance. And the guidance they set at the annual level. So it's not that they set the guidance the previous quarter and it was a big miss. They set the guidance a year ago, and then they kept reiterating that they were on track for it. So
right.
With that said, I could change my opinion on management as time moves on, but I am not in the camp that the management isn't trustworthy. It's that they're just overly optimistic, and that's a problem, and they do need to fix that. But I have a little bit more grace there.
Speaking of management having or being too optimistic, I've been very critical, as about Tesla and Elon, being way too optimistic with his timelines and promises, and then under delivering. And in my calculation, that pace has only increased, and he's more and more wrong over, like, 10 years ago he was making promises, or 15 years ago he was making promises and delivering late, but they weren't as late, and the promises weren't as grand, and then he eventually was delivering and over delivering with like the Tesla Model S, for example. He had promised it to be delivered by 2011 or time frame, and then it ended up being almost a year late, 2012. From when he had promised it in 2008 9 time frame, he was only off by just a few months, essentially. And then the car itself ended up being way better than what he had promised, and it just kept getting better and better. Tesla Model 3 was a similar type of story, where the promise and delivery timelines were roughly on par. He was like maybe 6 months late to delivering 5,000 vehicles per week. That ramp up took longer than he had been promising, but those type of promises were like relatively minor. Whereas in the past few years, he keeps double downing on these sort of like promises that are pretty extravagant, like 1 million robotaxis by the end of next year, every year for the past 5 years. And that with the launch of robotaxis in 2025 in June, he had said that they're going to cover like 90% 100% of the US with robotaxis by this time this year. So those promises not coming to fruition just seems a little bit red flaggy for sure, especially as they just keep increasing. Optimus was supposed to be having deliveries more than a year ago, and even that continues to get delayed. So it's one of those red flag things for me now. So I no longer can trust what Elon says. Just from the standpoint of promises and deliveries have been too far apart.
Right. Yeah. And I think if EOS has a longer history of promises not being met, I would definitely exit the position there. But
right.
It's too early to say management. I'm not going to trust management completely.
Right. Makes sense.